Hey there, folks, back again for another episode of the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. Here we are. It is another Thursday. I think this is episode 4 since we came back. And, we're on our cavalcade of guest hosts. And today we've got the one, the only El Jefe from El Jefe Reviews. Sir, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And, if you guys aren't familiar with El Jefe's channel, he does a lot of true wireless earbud content, a lot of audio content, your headphones and that kind of thing. And just recently, well, a month or so ago, hit past the 100,000 mark, which I was super excited. You're like the hardest working man in show business.
Man, no, I appreciate it, man. It's long time coming. Should have been sooner, but things happen, and
Yep.
it is what it is. But either way, man, I'm super excited. It's now I'm part of that 1% of channels that makes it to that milestone. So,
Well, you were
it's
part of the
wild.
1%, before you got there. That's, there's a certain level of quality that you've been at for quite a while, regardless of like your channel sub count.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate it, man.
yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm psyched for you. It's always great to see people, finally, even if it takes a long time, you know, I think in some ways that's like a better way to go. Because
Yeah,
I know it happened for me really fast, and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't have the organic time to get prepared for that people were looking for from a channel that was bigger than what my channel was previously.
yeah.
So it took me some time to figure that out. So, but yeah. So what else have you been into? What's been going on?
Nothing much, man. Just work and trying to do as much as I can. Been, was down sick for a good week, so
Mm,
really put me behind on stuff. But aside from that, man, it's just been testing headphones, listening to a bunch of music and audiobooks,
nice.
doing that stuff and trying to work on content when I can. But for the most part, being taking the approach of being much kinder to myself and not trying to push myself too hard into being burned out. So,
Yeah.
but it's been good, man. I'm glad, and the growth is happening at a pace that I'm comfortable with. Business is doing well, so work is going well. So yeah, I'm doing okay overall, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's, everything comes in a season. I, I went through the burnout phase and I think I stayed there for about 2 years. And I feel like, well, I was doing some Amazon streaming and all that kind of stuff. And YouTube kind of took a little bit of a side, he went to the side burner, like that smaller burner that's at the front, just kind of shifted it over there. And, but I'm not doing the Amazon thing anymore. So I'm back to trying to find ways to put out more stuff than I have been without burning myself out. Like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, no,
So
that's great, man. That's really
yeah,
the approach that I see a lot of more, I guess, seasoned creators are taking. I mean, the smart new ones are doing the same thing too, but basically doing big chunks of content and then finding ways of repurposing
yeah,
what they're doing and to make it work for them on multiple fronts. And if you can manage to pull that off, it's really the way to go. I mean, that's been like that's been my own short strategy, is just taking like clips from live streams and then just uploading those as shorts, and it's actually worked quite well.
yeah,
But there's just ways of doing it where I don't have to work double or burn myself out. It's another way to do it. But I hear you, man. The more you can do that, the better.
yeah. I've been using some AI to help myself out. I've been using this. It's called Gling. It's an
Hmm.
app that you can load your A roll into, and then it'll chop out all the like retakes and big long pauses and stuff like that. And then you can just download the file, like the Final Cut file, and all of a sudden, like your first pass of edits is done in 15 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome.
While you're doing other stuff, it's kind of chopping everything up. So I've been using that, and I've been using a service called Munch, and feeding some of my longer videos into, and then Munch will take the videos and they'll sort of crush it down and give you 10 or 15 options for shorts, and that gives you all kinds of information about the SEO of the clip and whether or not it will make sense. Like it gives it a context score, like if it'll make sense by itself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been using those things now for a month or two, couple of months, yeah. and it really helps,
Nice.
because there's, when I back in the day, I think like I was thinking in terms of like pre 2020 and post 2020. It seems like some kind of shift happened, and in pre 2020, it was just about like, make your 2 or 3 YouTube videos a week, and it was still like a cottage industry, but now people are starting to figure out ways to get out much more content. So I'm looking, I'm doing it, and
Yeah.
so. But yeah, it's actually kind of fun now. Like I did get burned out there for a while, but I've been loving doing the podcast, talking to a bunch of different people. Because everybody's got a little bit different focus to what
Yeah,
they're
of
doing. I had
course.
Tech Odyssey on here last week, so we
Nice.
dove deep into some smartphone stuff, and
Adam's a great guy too, man.
yeah, yeah, really smart guy, really good conversation. So I was psyched about that. And next week we have the one and only Juan Bagnell coming
Oh,
on.
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent, man. Yeah, Juan's one
And
of my favorite dudes. As
yes.
far as Juans go, he's my favorite Juan.
Yeah, I don't I know I knew A1 at some point otherwise, but yeah, he's my favorite some gadget guy.
Yeah. No,
And
he's a great guy, man. It's going to be a great episode. I'll have to make sure I catch that too.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So I have been working on some reviews of some headphones. And
nice.
the first one that I thought we could talk about is the new Beats Studio Pro. I picked them up when they got released because I didn't get the reviewers package.
Yeah, same.
so so I went to Best Buy and picked them up. And I don't know what are your thoughts so far on them?
So far, they're better than I expected, but still confused at a lot of the people that have kind of been poo-pooing on them on social media.
Mm,
But I think it has to play into context because coming from what they were before, and the upgrades that have been made ever since Beats was acquired by Apple,
right.
they're a much better product than I had expected, performance wise. Just
Hmm.
as far as sound, the different sound modes, the spatial audio, the noise cancellation. Um, I was very impressed because I think my expectations were quite low.
Yeah.
But also when we pit them against their bigger brother from Apple, the AirPods Max, they do a lot
Hmm.
for a lot less, and that's one of the things that kind of put into context for the people who are actually going to buy these,
Right.
because a lot of people who are going to buy these are going to be probably, I mean, they're sold in Apple stores,
Yeah.
probably going to be Apple users.
Yeah.
So this is going to be another good option for them personally. I mean, the older Beat stuff, I understand the reputation
Yeah.
because I didn't like them either, but once we got into the Apple acquisition, you got the Beats Solo Pro on
Hmm.
ears. Those were impressive. I'm
Yeah.
not even a fan of on ear headphones, but those were impressive. Aside from the fact that it has a lightning port, we'll
Yeah.
leave that
Well,
off to the
yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah, but aside from that, but with these, yeah, I'm actually impressed. Not saying these are the greatest technical headphones on the face of the earth, or whether they have the most amazing tuning. No, they don't. But for the intended target audience, these things are going to be perfect.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. So I've been impressed with Beats, more and more, as you said, like since Apple acquired them. Like I remember the Beats Studio 3 came out after Apple acquired them. And so this was like 2017-ish.
Mhm.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, they were the first headphone to have the H1 chip in them.
Right.
And then the AirPods Max came out like not too much longer. Or the original AirPods came out, not too much longer after. But that's what I was excited about, because the one thing that was always so annoying about wireless headphones up to that point was the hoops that you had to jump through to try and get them to connect and stay connected and everything else. And as soon as that H1 chip got in there and was like, you open up the headphones or turn them on, and boom, your phone says, "Hey, here are the headphones,"
Yeah.
and everything just got so much better. And I think true wireless headphones all around got better
No,
after
no, they
that.
did.
Yeah.
That was they set a standard of connectivity that the rest of the industry had to aspire to. And thankfully, the rest of the industry has gotten there to the point of like stable connections,
Mhm.
good quality, so that sort of stuff. But Apple was the ones that did it first, and they
Yeah.
did it very, very well. And I'm actually happy they did because they're the ones who, if it wasn't for that, setting that standard that other brands had to achieve, because before that, the True Wireless earbuds that were out and about were absolute garbage.
Yeah.
So,
They were though. I mean, I remember I think the first pair that I got were the original Samsung buds that I think it was the Note 7 that they came
yeah,
out with in like at the same time.
I think they were like a
And
Gear Icon
yeah,
or
the
Gear
Icon
X, something like
X,
that.
the
Yeah,
Icon X, I think it
yeah,
was. And they were expensive. And I only got them because I could like get them on my Verizon account. And but I just wanted to try them because I hadn't really tried anything that was true wireless like that.
yeah.
And so I picked them up and they wouldn't even stay connected to each other. It was
Oh,
like, because the receiver would be in the right ear and then the
mhm,
left ear would cut out and then they'd get out of sync with one another. And I was just like, these are, I think they were like 200 or 300 bucks.
mhm,
And that was just terrible. I
yeah,
was I was so upset with that. But you know, when Beats, so I remember the first time I bought a pair of Beats. I think it was one of the wired like Power Beats or one of their earbuds, like
mhm,
the wired, and this would have been like 2014, 2015, something like that, back before the Apple acquisition. And I was kind of excited to try them. You
yeah,
know, as a music snob, I always default to the place where it's like, oh, well, that's the popular headphone. Well, I'm just not going to like it. For
yeah.
yeah, but finally I was like, I'll try them out. But I went out to the car and I took them out of the box. I was that excited and I plugged them into my phone. And oh my God, they were so terrible. It I mean, it was as if I had stuffed, cotton balls on top of the earbuds into my ears, and it was just like
Yeah,
I literally put them back in the box, got out of the car, and took them back into the Best Buy,
yeah.
and was just like, no, I'm not going to do this.
Well,
So
that's the first taste that a lot of people got of that brand, or at
yeah,
least people who cared about sound
yeah,
got, that's what they tasted like. And for them, after that, it's always been these things are crap.
yeah,
And it's one of those things where I've had to like argue with people and fight with people like, listen, you need to go try them because
hmm
this is not the same thing as what you heard 10 years ago. It is not the same. It's not even being tuned by the same people. It's
right,
completely different team.
yeah,
So yeah, it's in like I said, they're not perfect, but yeah, those old ones, wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it blew me away that they were as popular as they were. I remember looking
yeah.
at the Beats. I think they were actually Beats Pro.
Mhm.
So they were wired headphones and they were super fancy, like really well made, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they were $400.
Oh yeah, I think those are their older like pro headphones that
They were
used
supposed
to
to be
see
their
like,
studio headphones, like
yeah, those things were not good.
they were not. I I listened to them. They had a again like they had a display at Best Buy, and I put them on, and I was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
not like studio reference quality. I don't care. I don't care what they
Because
say.
at that point, people were already using, the Bear Dynamics
Yeah,
and or AKG or
the
who's the other one?
Sony's, the
Yeah, or
Sony,
Sony.
what is
Yeah.
it? 7506s.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Worst come to worst, people were using the Workhorse Audio Technicas.
yeah,
But yeah, when you put on like those older Beats ones, I'm like, yeah, they
yeah.
were not referenced at all.
Not at all. And
Yeah.
yeah, headphones just in general. So since I would say since like 2017, headphones in general have really sort of stepped it up. Like lots more quality headphones coming out.
Mhm.
Lots more brands like Beats have been stepping up their game. The AirPods have been generally really good. And I had the AirPods Max and I've done several videos on the AirPods Max. And when they first came
Mhm.
out, I was really excited about them and liked the sound signature, thought the design was kind of cool. Over time, the AirPods Max sort of showed some of their issues to me.
Mhm.
One was weight and balance.
Yeah.
They were very heavy, and the ear cups being like giant aluminum rectangles, and then the headband just if I leaned back or if I leaned forward, they would just fall off.
Yeah.
And because of that, I didn't get a great seal for noise cancellation, and they weren't really comfortable. And that wasn't something that I really realized until time had gone by.
Yeah.
And so, but they were still like $550,
Yeah.
which was a stretch when they were released. And I'm surprised that it took as long as it has. That's because I really feel like after spending some time with these studio pros that Apple, for one reason, whatever reason it is, Apple absolutely, like euthanized the AirPods Max with the Studio Pros.
Yeah.
Because
And
I
even
mean,
with the price drop, they're like 450 now, but even that's still too high.
it's still, I mean, it's too high. Maybe you can find them on sale for 400
Mhm.
every once in a while, but they're still, Apple never puts anything on sale on their website in the Apple
Yeah.
store. But yeah, the Beat Studio Pro, you've got USB-C lossless audio, which that was one of my major sticking points with the AirPods Pro is here's Apple. They just, in concert with the release of those headphones, made everything lossless on Apple Music, and their $550 headphone couldn't do lossless audio,
Yeah.
not even wired.
It made no sense.
Yeah, and so I was just kind of like, okay, this is very strange, but now they've got a $350 headphone, which is not a little bit of money, but it does lossless USB-C to USB-C. And of course, people are going to be like, "Well, my phone doesn't have USB-C."
It will soon enough.
But that's the thing. I mean, that's if nothing else, that's more proof that they're going USB-C
Yeah.
this year with the iPhone 15 than anything else because they've stubbornly stuck Lightning in every box as often as they could.
Yeah.
Um, and they make a lot of money off that MFI certification. So I get it. They license that stuff and they make a bunch of money. So it'll be interesting to see if they do go to USB-C, like how that affects their bottom line. But
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
but I agree. I mean, just with what they bring to the table with the new Beats, it's exciting, but also exciting for whatever they're gonna do with the next generation of AirPods Max.
yeah,
Because there was a lot of flaws in the AirPods Max that they should correct,
yeah,
especially compatibility with their own high res audio.
yeah,
It's one thing to give a spatial. Like I get why they went with spatial over high res. Like I
yeah,
understand the broad appeal of what can you instantly tell the difference, high
right,
res or spatial audio. Of course, it's going to be spatial audio for general consumers. I get
yeah,
that, but if when you're charging that much money, it should be both. And I'm hoping that now we will get that because of USB-C. So, but that's what I'm hoping for because yeah, I agree for the most part with AirPods Max. Like one of my gripes with them was not at first weight, but it's not until you use them for a long period of time, as in over months of time, but also when you're actually wearing them for hours at a time, whether it's a flight somewhere or you're binge watching shows or something. Because that's when it caught me when I went. I took a bit of a sabbatical break around my birthday, and I went down to the coast and rented a nice little place on the beach, and I was watching. I ended up binge watching all of The Last of Us on
oh
my
yeah,
iPad, and I had the AirPods Max, and it was about 2 episodes in where I started feeling the weight of the headband, and I was like,
yeah,
what is happening?" And then I started noticing like my neck, and I would take them off, and I'm like, I feel a lot lighter. Like that's not right. And
yeah,
that's not something I usually used to notice because I would wear them when I would go for like a half hour walk, maybe 45 minutes. So it wouldn't be like I would be sitting there outside from when I did my initial testing. I wouldn't sit there for hours wearing them.
yeah,
And that was the thing that really kind of tripped me out about them. But I didn't learn that until years later.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, the thing that I noticed too, wearing them for a longer period of time, is with those aluminum ear cups, they conduct heat. So if your body heat is going and that kind of thing, after a while, Like they start to get some convection happening. And not only was there condensation that a lot of people saw, they take off the ear pad and see that there's like water condensing. That's
Yeah,
like inside of the headphone, but it
yeah,
also would heat up your ears.
yeah,
So yeah, they were definitely like a first a first try at a headphone for Apple, even though they've had Beats and they've been doing that thing for a while. I think they wanted the AirPods Max to be something different, to be something very specifically Apple like. And it'll be interesting to see what lessons they decided that they learned
yeah.
in doing that. Because do they go away from the aluminum design, or because the the heft of them is something that I think, I've heard some people say like I wear them all day every day.
Mhm.
I'm like, how do you do that? Do you like go to the gym and like work out your
I have
neck
I have a
muscle?
coworker that wears them all day, every day, and we're like, we're always on like Zoom calls for meetings,
Yeah,
and she's got them on all the time. I'm like, more
yeah.
power to you.
My go-to just like easy grab and go headphones recently for a while now have been the AirPods Pro
Mm,
2. Uh which I think actually sounded a little bit better than the AirPods Max. It's hard to compare like an over the ear to an in ear,
yeah, yeah,
but I really enjoy those. And again, the thing with the AirPods is being able to just pick them up and they connect to your phone. And like I have an Apple TV, and that's what I watch everything through. And if you've got your AirPods there with you and you pick them up and open the lid or put them on your head, the Apple TV will say, "Hey, we see that you've got AirPods Max or AirPods Pro or whatever. Do you want to use them? Hit this button," and it just connects. And the next thing you know, that to me is kind of another one of those examples of that Apple ecosystem, just like anticipation of what's going to be easy for the user, and that's why I always say like Apple's more of a lifestyle brand
yeah.
than they make great tech, but it's always kind of like lifestyle first.
Mhm.
And that's why the ecosystem works, whereas like some companies that haven't been able to crack the ecosystem code
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, it's convenience for the customer. Can I make your life easier or seemingly
Yeah,
easier
yeah,
for you? And that there's something to that. And that's I think that's the drive and also what keeps people
yeah,
coming back for more over and over. It's tough for people to understand it when they don't use it or haven't tried it.
right,
So because you'll hear that a lot. And I think it's smart for people to actually try both. Now, obviously, it's not cheap, but
yeah,
it's something that I didn't quite understand until I had, the watch, the tablet, the phone, the headphones. Once I had all of that stuff, the Mac Mini, like everything. Once I had
hmm,
like this whole the whole setup, I was like, okay, that's that's something different. You know what I mean? I can see why it holds a grip on people. But for me, I'm a dual user, so I have both.
right,
I have both
yeah,
of everything. So yeah, it's like right now, I mean, I have the Mac Mini on the desk, but this I'm streaming through my PC.
right,
So it's like I have a dual setup here.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't really get it until I actually tried it, and then I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah.
now I understand.
And so I end up, because I talk about Android phones as well as iPhones, and I talk about all kinds of different stuff, but I think a lot of people look at me in my channel and think of me as like Apple centric. Um, whether or not that's the case, I always I always used to get in the argument with people who like you just don't understand, but that's not a defensible position,
Right.
right? So yeah, and so it's the classic argument where just like Windows versus Mac in the 2000s and late 90s, Windows you could do everything, it was totally customizable on every level, whereas Macs locked you down with Mac OS to a certain kind of workflow, right? And it's just two different philosophies of how to make things work. And so Android phones versus iPhones is kind of the same thing. People love that Android phones customizable. You can, I mean, you still can't drag a widget anywhere you want on an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Right? You can't make it any size that you want. You can't. It's and I get why it's frustrating to people who haven't had the experience. I mean, I wonder what the threshold is for being suddenly locked into the Apple ecosystem. Is it
Yeah.
3 devices? Is it 4? Like, you start with the phone and then maybe you get the watch and then, maybe you already had the computer or you get, the iPad or something like that. But once you get to phone, watch, couple of computers, 2 Apple TVs, like it's impossible to break away from it. And I've tried to simplify my life by making a switch to, I went to PC and was like, okay, PC, I'm gonna be here.
Mhm.
And but there were always these pain points that became much more difficult to deal with than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Especially for like audio production. And it's not necessarily because you can't do that on PC. Of course you can, and plenty
Mhm.
of people do. But for me, I'd invested so much time, and we're talking decades plus money, and just sort of, it's almost like breathing oxygen versus breathing something else. When you're so used to working in an ecosystem, and I was using Logic Pro and Final Cut and all these other things, and yeah, there are great options on the PC side, but I found myself just kind of banging my head against the wall
Yeah.
every once in a while. And I had to finally admit, like, there are things that frustrate me about Apple and frustrate me working within the ecosystem. But at a certain point, you just kind of have to say, well, nothing's going to be perfect. I'm going to have to accept some some good and bad, no matter which way I go.
Yeah. I think
So
that's my brother's the same way because he does audio production and it's all on his MacBook.
yeah,
And he has to stay. One of the funny things about with audio is the fact that he has to stay an operating system or two behind
right.
for nothing to break.
Uh-huh. I
And
know.
it's a constant game, like it's like a game of shadows. Every time he hears about a new update, he's like making sure, he's like, let me check my settings, make sure I'm not going to auto update. He usually stays 2 OSs behind
Yeah,
just to be safe. Because a lot of the programs that he uses, not even just for production, but because of his work where he DJs,
right.
those programs will break.
Yeah.
So, and that's happened. This happened to many DJs where they'll go to do a DJ set and suddenly their Mac is no longer compatible with their controller or with the Serato software, and it's like, bro, you got 500 people that you're supposed to be DJing for.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
There's supposed to be
So,
some four on the floor going on here, and there's nothing
yeah,
there's nothing happening. No,
yeah.
it used to be even worse. Like, I remember, like, back in the early days, if you even thought about updating one program,
Mhm.
that everything could die. Like, there are still guys out there running professional studios with cheese grater Mac Pros from 2007 on iOS 9 or Mac
Yeah,
OS 9, like, and it works for them.
yeah,
And that's kind of the thing that I learned and had read a little bit and was thinking, like, oh, when you're doing the tech review thing and you're always trying something new, that was one thing that always got me, was like, it felt like I was always trying to get all my stuff together. Like, I didn't have a system that was like mature and working and everything was downloaded and put in the right places and doing all the right things. And for a lot of these people who do audio or video professionally, once they have a system that's up and working and is optimized for what they needed to do, they do not mess with it at
yeah,
all. I mean, to the to the point of being like 15 years, 20 years out of date, you know.
yeah.
But
Can't
if
blame them either. I mean, especially because it's one of those things where you don't even know, like, all right, I'm gonna upgrade. Am I gonna be able to do what I was doing? And how do I figure this out? And can I afford the downtime
yeah,
of figuring things out? And it's just like, oh man. So
yeah, you
yeah,
don't,
it's wild. Like even when my brother finally ended up getting, he was using a 2015 Mac for the longest time.
right.
And I think it was last year I think it was last year or late. It was either late 21, early 22 when he finally got an M1 MacBook.
Mhm.
And even at first, he left it in the box for months
Yeah.
because he didn't. He bought it and just. I was like, is that thing still in the box? I was like, maybe you should check and make sure it works. And I was like, so eventually he set it up as a backup. Now it's his main rig
Yeah.
for when he does his actual like pro work outside of the house. Here at home, he still uses the 2015 for like music production.
Right.
But that's why I can tell like he doesn't want to mess with the older rig
Yeah.
because it's all set up like I think I'm not sure if he's using Ableton or what he's using, but he doesn't want to mess with anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it, leave it alone.
Man, so I usually try and stay one version back at least. Um, but I ended up one of my computers, I ended up updating to the most recent version of Mac OS just because I wanted to check out some of the, it's doing some different things. And it broke my audio interface.
Ugh,
You know, it just like it just wouldn't work. And it
yeah.
broke even Final Cut.
Oh
Final Cut
man.
would just like start up and then just sit there and then crash.
Yeah.
And so I had to roll back to the previous version. It was frustrating. And Final Cut, and this wasn't like the day after this new operating system came out. This was like several months down the line.
Yeah.
And so it can be really dangerous to mess with your stuff. And I think when you're doing any kind of creative thing and using a computer as one of your tools, you don't realize how much time you lose in having to reinstall things or troubleshoot something or whatever it is. And suddenly, I know it happened for me where I was like, holy crap, I haven't put out any videos this week or the past 2 weeks because I've been just like messing around with stuff.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it can get really challenging. And
Yeah.
so I can see why some people, will keep a, I used to have this 2015 MacBook Pro, and that was my work computer from my old job. And I was sad to let it go when I left because I'd been using it. So I left in 2019. So I'd been using it for 4 years, and it was still rock solid and still had like everything that I needed on it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, but had to let it go
Yeah,
because
I don't blame you. I actually had to I set up a redundancy, and thankfully I did because I edit all my videos on an iPad with LumaFusion.
right,
And LumaFusion, as great and stable as it's been for a long time, it's not perfect and it has had problems. And I ended up running into an issue where I couldn't export.
right,
Every export would fail. And I was like, wait a minute, everything was exporting fine. And I still had my projects and all the files still on there. So like, let me see if I can export the last video that exported just fine,
right.
and it wouldn't export that now either. And I'm like, what is happening here? So what I did before this, and this was just because I saw somebody else do it, and I thought in the back of my head, maybe I should do it. I have two iPads, so I
Oh
have the
yeah.
iPad Pro, the 12.9, the M1, and then I also have an iPad Mini, the iPad 6.
Hmm.
And I had set up LumaFusion on it just in case when I had gone to Vid Summit, I believe it was,
Right.
just in case I need to edit anything. So I set it up there. So I moved the files over to the iPad Mini, and sure enough, I could export it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on here? So that was it saved my butt that day because at that video that I was trying to get done was to meet an embargo for a sponsorship.
Right.
So it was like I had a contractual agreement to get this video out at a certain time, and it was on me because it was
Yeah.
my hardware that wasn't letting me do it. So there's something to be said for like redundancy, but I know that's not doable for everyone. And mind you, my iPad Mini mostly monitors my security system,
Right.
but it's one of those where like if I travel, that's what I'm going to take with me.
Hmm.
And thankfully, I had it, and I was able to get that project done and out. But it was, and it's also shout out to keeping my almost all of my videos under a gig. So when
Yeah.
they export, they're usually still megabytes for my entire
Yeah.
videos, unless it goes like once I start pushing past 25 minutes, then we'll push like 1.1, 1.2 gigs.
Hmm.
But for the most part, they're all in the megabytes, and that's on purpose so that
Right.
it can export quickly, so that I can upload quickly, so it can process quickly. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was I got lucky with that, and now I know I'm like, okay, if this ever happens again, I have the backup iPad where I can do this. But yeah, I can't imagine being having everything locked into like just my PC. And it has happened before when I was using before LumaFusion. I've been using LumaFusion since 2019.
Right.
So before that, I was using Filmora, and Filmora used to have problems too.
Hmm.
And that was editing on PC, and it would lock up. It would be all kinds of craziness, and um, but yeah, I couldn't imagine like trying to have a second computer.
Yeah.
So like quickly, because can you imagine like I'm trying now? I gotta delete this program, update my computer, bring the program back in, hope load in all the files, hope that the edit is still there, that I don't have to re-edit the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, man.
Yeah. It can be like, I decided at a certain point when I went back, when I decided, okay, PC is great. Like I still have my gaming PC over there. It still works great and could do anything that I want to do with it. But when I went back to Mac this last time, I was one problem I had even with the newer M1 machines is that when they would fill up with memory, like so if the RAM filled up and was starting to do swap with the hard drive, which is what will happen if you've got like 8 or 16 gigs, um, the machine would just start to chug. It would just bog
Yeah.
down a little bit and start to get weird. And so I just decided I'm gonna get something that has 32 gigs minimum, and that the M1 Max, and that way I have all kinds of headroom. So if I start making videos that, I just recently started filming in 4K again, and so if I, like each my A and B roll is they're each over like 10 gigs of space. So it's like,
Yeah.
so but this the M1 the M1 Max Studio will just chew right through it, you know.
Nice.
So that's kind of what I wanted to be able to do. Is just not like take the machine out of the equation
Yeah.
and make that as good as it could possibly be. And then like I didn't end up going to an M2 of any kind, although I was tempted. I was tempted to get a M2 MacBook Pro or something like that, but I really think I'm excited to see what comes next. Like with if they get the M3s down to 3 nanometers, and
Mhm.
then but then you get into the weeds of all that stuff. But
Yeah.
that's been the crazy thing with Macs. I think that Mac and PC were on a pretty even keel, and PC like Intel and AMD have caught up in terms of speed. But something happened when Macs went from Intel to the M series chips. That was like generational.
Mhm.
Just a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So
I think,
I'm
Intel and those guys kind of got, a little complacent from
yeah,
having being at the top, that there was nothing, no competition to drive them. So why innovate? And they were
yeah,
doing very, very minimal. Like I think it's like I forgot somebody had broke it down between like the Intel generations where from like I don't know 6 through like 11 or 12 there was like nothing.
yeah,
Like it was like very, very minimal bumps. And it wasn't until AMD really kind of kicked them in the pants to kind of get them moving forward again. But now Apple came in and was like, hey guys, guess what? We're gonna go left and do this far better than you. And it's like, oh my lord. So
yeah.
it's good
Y-
to see, but I don't know if it's gonna be who's gonna answer it, Nvidia. I don't know who it's gonna be, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Apple going with just the system on the chip, and all the RAM is shared, and it's a much different process than like these x86
Mhm.
PCs that it has discrete parts. You've
Yeah,
got your RAM sticks, you've got your CPU, you got your GPU, and everything's it's just a much different philosophy. And I don't think anybody expected it to work as well as it has for the Macs.
yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting. I mean, you know, it, I'm so I tried out the Logic Pro for iPad, right?
Mhm.
I've got the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And then I edited a video on Final Cut for iPad.
Oh, okay.
And just to try it out. It's like it's so different from my workflow that it would take me a while to kind of used to it to really be able to get a one-to-one kind of feeling for it. But Logic Pro for iPad was strangely really fun in a way that sitting down at the computer often isn't.
Hmm.
Because you have the iPad there in front of you, and it is simplified. It's not nearly as sort of involved as iPad or Logic for the Mac. But I I made a video where my goal was to write and record a song on the iPad in Logic and see what happened. And so a few hours later, I had all the parts recorded. I just, used the drummer program that Logic has in there and put in sort of put a drum part together. And yeah, it was there was just a barrier that was taken away. However, like I don't know that I think there will be people who grow up with that, who where it becomes a thing that they are learning on,
Right.
that will use it, and it will be like a totally pro program for them.
Hmm.
But when it came time for me to mix, I took everything, and the nice thing is it puts it all on iCloud. So you can just go back to your computer to iCloud and open it up in Logic on the Mac.
Yeah.
So
That's super helpful.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I just mixed everything on Logic for the Mac, and it was a really fun process. So there's a lot of things. The Vision Pro is going to be really interesting to see where that goes.
Hmm.
I have high hopes for Vision Pro.
Yeah.
When I saw that, my mind was like,
Yeah. Same. There's a lot of people who don't are not into AR VR, but being sort of not forced into it, but our company got us all the MetaQuest 2,
right,
the one that was like around 500 at launch, I think like 299 or whatever it was.
right,
So they got it all for us. I think it was Christmas 21 that they got them all for us. And then we started doing meetings in
right,
VR and playing games with each other and like doing all kinds of stuff. And it really kind of woke me up to what a workflow can be, because they have a meeting space in there where basically like um I'm in the headset, I'm in the workspace, and in this meeting room I can, if I have my PC linked
hmm
in this meeting room that I'm in, it has a screen and I can have my screen shared into it.
right,
So I can work on my computer in this virtual space. But the cool thing about it is because, I work for a company that's 100% remote.
yep,
But the fact that you're in a room with your coworkers and virtually, but the audio is spatial.
yeah,
So whoever's left and right of you, you can hear them that way. So it made it much more fun in that sense. Battery life was what was our limiting factor, but just seeing where that was
yeah,
kind of opened my eyes. Like I can just imagine where this is going to be if not only do they put real money behind it, but more development to where, because the main issue with it, like for watching movies and like playing games, is the fidelity is just not quite there yet.
right,
It's almost there, but not enough. But mind you, it's still good enough for like normal people to experience things that they would never experience. It's
yeah,
still an amazing thing. But for what Apple's gonna do with it, I am excited. I don't think I'll be one of the first people to buy one, but more than likely, what I'll end up doing is probably getting one off of somebody who decides that it's not for them.
right.
So they just want to sell it to a friend. I might do that, but yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing that I don't remember them talking about at the event where they announced it, but what I've heard since is that in order to get you have to go to an Apple store, I
Mhm.
think, in order to order it, and I think they might even have to take some measurements or something. I'm not
That
100%
would
sure on that.
make sense though.
Yeah,
Because I remember Focal, or it was the company that was doing the smart glasses.
right, right,
North, I think it was the company was called. It's no longer around.
right.
But I remember that our buddy Juan Bagnell, he had to go to a store and get like measured and like all that stuff to make
Mhm.
sure that everything was up to par, which makes a lot of sense, especially for something that you're going to be paying that kind of money for.
Yeah,
Or if you wear glasses
yeah.
or anything like that, then you're definitely going to want to have more of a tailored experience.
Well,
Because
that's
God forbid you buy it at that price and everything's
yeah.
blurry.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my concern. I've done some reviews of like so XReal and TCL both have these AR glasses
Hmm.
that you can wear, and I've done videos on both of those, and they're very cool. but the problem is like I don't have like I have to wear them over my prescription glasses.
Yeah.
And you can get little prescription lenses. They give you a frame that you can get prescription lenses in, but my prescription is so screwed up and I have astigmatism and all this other stuff that that's one thing that worries me about Vision Pro is like, will I actually be able to get like corrective lenses in there, or will there be space enough for me to wear my glasses without
Right.
discomfort? You know, like that's one of the big hurdles that I've had with VR because I have still have the Oculus Rift S,
Hmm.
and I've tried, you know, everything from Google Cardboard and Samsung stuff, you know, back in the day. I've tried everything that I can get my hands on. First PlayStation VR.
Hmm.
Haven't tried the new one. The new one sounds really cool, but
Yeah, I haven't tried the new one. I did try the first version of it.
the thing that got me about it ultimately, and I think that this is a problem with all VR stuff up to this point, is that the ecosystem of games is not enough to keep you actively sort of using it.
Hmm.
You know, the games are somewhat simplified, except and then or they're made for the experience. And there's some games that are super successful, like Beat Saber is one of those games that's a
Yeah.
super great game for that
And
kind
I know
of
guys like doing Gran Turismo with it too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So racing experience, it makes a lot of sense, but you got to be really into that game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know you can do VR with Skyrim,
Mm,
and you can do VR with Elite Dangerous. I don't know if you can do it with Star Citizen, but Elite Dangerous, I always thought would be really cool to try. But
yeah.
with no peripheral vision in those like totally enclosed VR headsets, it makes it hard because you've got your hands on like a HOTAS or something, and you know, until
Yeah.
you get that muscle memory right. So, but I was terrible at Elite Dangerous anyway. I could barely, I could barely.
Mm,
It's one of those games where like the flying experience is so realistic that it becomes way more difficult than you ever want it to be.
yeah. I hear you. I know for me, I'd like to be if I had a rig powerful enough because I know I need to this rig that I have. I built in early 2020 for when I got hired by vidIQ.
Right,
And I've upgraded it along the way, but it's still a 2019 spec system. So
right,
it's like a second gen Ryzen, R5. It's very old school.
right.
Um Old school per se, right?
Yeah,
2020. But yeah, but once I do that, like I'd love to be able to have it set up like that to where I could do VR in something like Cyberpunk
yeah,
or Grand Theft Auto. Just not even to like really even play the game. I mean, play the game would be cool, but just to be able to walk around
yeah,
in that experience and be able to like 360 look around inside like Night City, I think would be really cool.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, right now, I don't think my rig can actually handle trying to pull that off.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I mean is again what made me think of it was the leap that from Intel to M series chip, you
Hmm.
know, made so much more power possible in the Mac system. So there's gonna have to be some kind of leap forward in processing power and graphics power to really make these AR and VR headsets work
Yeah,
to where the point where, as you said, like it's pretty good but not quite there.
yeah,
You know, you want to have that very much realistic experience.
yeah,
You know, it's called virtual or augmented reality, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, I
we
don't think
need
we're gonna. I don't think it'll. I mean, it'll be as immersive as it can get to an extent, but I think it's either gonna have to go 2 ways to really make it more real for us as humans, and one is gonna be Neuralink,
yeah,
or 2, we actually build something akin to a holodeck, which I don't see that happening anytime soon.
yeah,
So so as close as we can get, but it's very much like because we still can't experience the temperature changes, I mean, there's ways that we can try to do it, but to actually put yourself, your entire self into an environment so that it feels that real is still, I think we're still just too far from it. So
yeah,
that puts a lot of limitations. And I think that's kind of what breaks it for a lot of people.
yeah. And I mean, even visually, you know, there's just enough to sort of keep you from being totally immersed.
Right.
You know, so it's right on that precipice though of just like video games with like Unreal Engine 5,
Mhm.
seeing some of the demos of that, and you're like,
That's why I was looking
that,
forward to the new Oculus that was supposed to come out,
yeah,
because I was like,
mm,
because I saw what the one was doing, and I was like, okay, if the two is this good, and if they can just get that fidelity to the next level,
yeah,
where the games will look, akin to like playing it on my ultra wide or on my TV out there, to where the graphics are that clean.
yeah,
Because right now with the Oculus, you can see how pixelated it is.
yeah.
And that to me is like that's what breaks it. That's why playing more basic stuff is cool. That's not a big deal. But if you try to watch a movie, it doesn't look. I might as well just watch on my computer because it doesn't look as good. So
I
yeah, if they can get that fidelity like across that quality fidelity level, like that to me, pair that with like good earbuds or good headphones, you'll be at least in a good headspace to
Yeah.
immerse yourself. But
Well, and
we're this close, man.
that's kind of the promise that the Vision Pro is making. But
Right.
even what makes me really think that we're on the verge of it is even just with the X Real and the TCL glasses.
Mhm.
They have like little mini OLED screens in them.
Right.
And they're 1080p, but 1080p like right on top of your eyeball is
Yeah.
is plenty good. There's no screen door effect, and they're gonna have pancake lenses in the Vision Pro, so it's not gonna have the weird warping and that kind of thing. So the potential is there. I
Yeah.
mean, what they have to do is be able to make a platform that can be stable, so that then software and other developments can catch up with the platform. So Vision Pro version 1 is enough of a platform that it won't be obsolete in 2 years.
Right.
You know, then they can keep moving with it and keep going. So I, there's just it's been a weird time in tech for the past couple of years, with the pandemic being one thing. I mean, I thought the pandemic was going to be like a dead time, but
Mhm.
it turned out that like everybody was buying tech,
Yeah.
and then the past year or two has been sort of dead,
Yeah.
because well, there are multiple reasons why, but it just ends up being kind of dull, let's say, and
Yeah.
not for any other reason, but I think that companies just kind of had to breathe for a minute.
No, I mean, and that makes a lot of sense. Because I was the same way. Like I expected things to really slow down, and they didn't. At least for us, and it may sound weird for people who aren't like content creators or work from home and stuff, because the pandemic was tragic for
Yeah.
so many
Oh yeah.
people, and then for other people, it was actually kind of like a boon
Yeah.
because it was for me probably my most lucrative year professionally and personally. And then 21 also another one. Um, but for a lot of people it was terrible, but for me it was actually really good,
Yeah.
which is really odd. But the tech was weird because everything was coming out, like things were still launching, and people were buying up everything. And then we had the supply chain stuff that really kicked in
Yeah.
later on and slowed everything down. But it was still like very, very interesting, kind of the way things went. But tech is going in fun directions, and I'm really excited for it. I know, much like yourself, I ended up getting the Pixel Fold.
Hmm.
I didn't get sent to me much like yourself. I bought it myself day one,
Yeah.
and it's nice to see kind of where that stuff is going. It's good. I'm happy to see more competition in the space, and I'm happy. And the reason for that, not even just with mobile tech, computers, VR, AR. Every time we get more competitors, as us as consumers and as tech enthusiasts, we win
Yeah.
because it starts to become a race to the bottom. And I love it. Like that's what it's been in audio for the past 5 years,
Yeah.
has been how much crap can we stuff into a set of headphones or earbuds at the lowest price possible?
Right.
And the consumers are winning,
Yeah.
right? You got some amazing stuff for under 50 bucks now. Um,
No, absolutely.
and I love to see it. I love the fact that like it's forced companies to kind of get off their laurels of giving us just enough
Right.
to like, oh crap, there's competition out here that's actually serious, and maybe we should do some innovating now. And I love to see that.
Well, it's funny. Like when I first started doing YouTube, I was doing gaming headsets
Mhm.
mainly, because I just got into a place where I had never used a gaming headset, And so I had the PS4 and I was like, okay, and I want to hang out with my buddy and play Battlefield. And I was so shocked at how bad so many of those gaming headsets were. And they were expensive too.
Yeah,
But now,
yeah,
like, you could go out and spend 50 bucks or less on a gaming headset and get something that would have been unbelievably good 6, 7 years ago.
yeah, yeah. They've
So
definitely improved. Like that's actually one of the. I think that's one of the audio spaces that has made a lot of improvements now. Not completely,
yeah,
because now there's enough gems
yeah,
out there that you can comfortably recommend products at multiple price points for people, all the way up to what is it, the Odyssey Maxwell, all
yeah,
the way up to that. But anything from down around $50, you actually got some decent options now.
yeah,
And I love seeing that because it gives people so many different things, and not even just headphones or headsets, but now IEMs or people who like to
yeah,
game on open backs like I do.
yeah,
Me finding out, I'm still trying to figure out a way that I can run my Sennheisers with my PS5. I'm
yeah.
gonna figure it out.
I made a video about doing that like way back in the day, and I had
Yeah.
some kind of like amp DAC setup going
Yeah.
into like all this other stuff, and then but you try and get the microphone going at the same time, and it's like
Yeah.
it
Well, I
gets
don't play with other people, man. So for me, it's just
yeah,
as long as I can hear it, I'll be happy.
yeah,
But yeah, for the microphone, I'd probably end up doing something like one of those Antlion mod mics or something like that.
yeah,
But yeah, for me, it's just like I'll figure out a way to do it because I was doing that. Well, at least when I play on PC, I just use open backs, and if I have to mic up, I'll use this.
right,
But yeah, I mean, I have one of the PS5 like headsets. If I want to play with somebody else, I have that.
yeah.
I think I chatted a couple times with Viper back and forth through the PS5, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
No,
But
and
yeah,
the PS5 now they've got the mic in the controller,
yeah,
and it actually works pretty well. They've got the compression and gate settings down to where it's not just like I used to play with this guy who wouldn't use a mic on his headset,
mm,
and it would just like you'd hear everything that was happening in his house. He had like four kids, and it would just be like, "Rah!" And it's like, dude, you have
yeah,
to and like you got to get a mic.
yeah. You got to
But
mute yourself, bro.
yeah, but now you can use that mic and it does sound pretty decent. So
Yeah,
it's pretty cool what's going on, like right on the edge. We were talking a little bit before we got started about just how I haven't been watching as much tech YouTube as I had in the past,
same.
and
Yeah,
you were saying the same thing. Um, and for me, it got to the point where there was not like stuff wasn't different enough
yeah,
to be exciting enough for me to like run to my computer and watch everybody's videos about it.
yeah.
But the Pixel Fold kind of snuck up on me.
Hmm.
At first I poo-pooed it. And I was like, yeah, I had the Galaxy Fold 3, I had the Galaxy Fold 4. The 3 I felt it still needed some time in the oven.
Right.
The 4 was pretty solid, but ultimately, and this is what I still have to find out with the Pixel Fold, ultimately using the Pixel 4 or the Fold 4 became fiddly enough in everyday use, like unfolding and refolding and trying to do something on the cover screen and then have to unfold it because it wasn't big enough. The the thing that snuck up on me about the Pixel Fold is the fact that its form factor is big enough that I rarely open it.
Hmm.
It's like at the end of the day, if I'm sitting on the couch or I jump in bed and I just want to like read something or watch some YouTube videos or whatever, then I open it up and it's a different experience. But 9 times out of 10, I can just use it as a regular phone,
Yeah.
and it's a really good experience. And I hadn't thought that would be the case. I use the Microsoft Surface Duo 2 for a while and really liked the form factor.
Right.
And the Pixel Fold is kind of somewhere in between. It's not quite as big as the Duo 2, and it's definitely not as sort of like tall and thin as the Fold.
Right.
And so Google might have hit the sweet spot on this folding phone kind of. It's still not quite developed. I mean, they're definitely more mature. We're 5 versions into the folds from
Mhm.
Samsung, and other companies have come out with theirs. Of course, here in the US, we really don't have that much of a choice. It was the Fold or nothing until the Pixel Fold came
Right.
out, right? And so I've really been enjoying it, and it's got me really feeling like there might be enough to pull me away from being full time iPhone.
Yeah. That the only thing that slowed me down was iPhone going, eSIM in the States
Mm,
is I don't want
hmm.
to deal with the drama of moving my eSIM over to the Pixel. So I have my secondary line, which is my secret line.
Hmm.
But that's sort of like my personal line. So if I call friends or anything like that, that's kind of
Right,
what I'm going to use. Um, but that's kind of what's kept me from doing it. But I've been using it every single day, and it's been excellent. And the reason why I was day one, when I found out what the form factor was going to be, I knew immediately that I was going to buy it
right.
because and mind you, I wasn't somebody who owned the Galaxy Fold, but I'd used them. I'd used
Hmm.
the 3 and I had used the 4 temporarily. And I was not a fan of the slim display. Opened up, cool, but to be able to just use it closed, it didn't work for me and my fat fingers.
Yeah,
So I was like, okay, this isn't going to work for me. So that's what kept me from going into. It's why I ended up with the Galaxy Flip 4 instead of the Fold, because this to me was more usable for what I needed out of a Samsung device specifically.
right.
And what the reason that I knew I was going to get this was because a friend of mine, well, I have a bunch of friends who like to import phones, but a local friend of mine got his hands on the Oppo Find N2,
Okay.
which is very similar in its shape. It's
Hmm.
like more passport style, like the Pixel Fold. And when I put my hands on it, playing with it, opening it, playing with the front display, that's when I knew and I was like, okay, this is a much better layout for me. Even
Yeah,
though some people say, oh, the screen's like too small. Well, if you're accustomed to a massive phone, that makes sense. But I'll put it like this. So I'm gonna go top down real quick so you can see it.
yeah.
So here's my Zenfone 9,
Right.
right? This is the Android that I was using prior to getting the Pixel Fold. So if you look at this, the front screen sizes.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, the front screen size here is obviously more width to it,
Hmm.
but height wise, it's almost the same. So for me, because some people were saying, oh, this is not big enough. I need it to be, 6.7 or whatever.
Right.
For me, it was perfect. And
Yeah.
then the fact that I could use it unfolded for when I'm watching videos, when I'm doing a lot of my own work, monitoring Discord, a lot of different things. For me, unfolded, it works perfectly. So the fact that I was able to get it to fit into my own lifestyle the way that I have had with the Fold. Like I said, I've set everything up. The only thing that's not on here is my main SIM out of the iPhone because I don't want to deal with
Hmm.
moving it over right now. So but I'm finding myself on a day-to-day basis using the Fold far more than my own iPhone. Even though it's just sitting right here, when I'm like laying on the couch doing anything, I'm grabbing the Fold, watching videos, or
Yeah.
on Twitter X or whatever, whatever it is that I'm
Twitter
doing it
Twitter
on the
X
Fold.
sounds dirty.
Yeah, right, totally. But that's like whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's social medias or watching video or
Yeah.
anything, it's a better experience for me. On the Fold, and I'm not opposed to like because people are like, oh yeah, you have to use it like this. I'll turn it on its side and I'll use it on its side all day long.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't bug me whatsoever.
And it's not that much because of the aspect ratio of it. One is not that much different than the other.
No.
So it kind of works perfectly. I mean, if I look at my iPhone, so I've got the iPhone 12 Pro Max here, and the reason that I have didn't go to the 14 Pro Max, although I did buy one to review, um, is I didn't want to deal with the SIM stuff. So when I got the 14 Pro, I did the eSIM, and then I wanted to try another phone, and I couldn't do it, so I just went and got another SIM with my main number on it, and I gave the 14 Pro Max to my wife because she doesn't switch phones, and she hadn't had a new phone for a long time, and this was her phone. The 12 Pro Max was hers, and so I just took the 12 Pro Max from her, and it's the experience of using a 12 Pro Max versus the experience of using a 14 is almost imperceptible.
Yeah.
Other than, you've got the notch instead of the whatever they call it. the,
Yeah, the
the little
dynamic
pill, the
island.
dynamic island. You've
Yeah.
got that, and then you have the always on display, which is a cool feature, and I do like the way that Apple implemented it, although it took me some time to get used to it.
I
But
actually turned it off. It was killing my battery.
yeah,
Uh,
I ended up liking it, just seeing it lay around like so,
mhm.
we've got
I
our
liked
grand
it.
yeah.
Yeah. It was just hurting the experience because for me, the iPhone would take me from 6 in the morning till, 12 or 1 at night, no
Right.
problem,
Yeah.
like easily. And with that always on display, I was getting to like 7 o'clock at night. So it was like such a drastic difference.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what is killing my battery? And then I turn it off. And sure enough, I'm like, oh, so that's what was doing it because I liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I think they might have optimized that a little bit since then, or at least I hope they would have, but it's
yeah,
gonna be interesting. And maybe this will be what we kind of wrap up on is just the fact that the iPhone for a couple of years had really solved the final problem that I felt like all phones had, which was battery life. So the iPhone 11, 12, and 13 Pro Maxes, especially the 12 and 13 became battery champions.
mhm,
And, I was getting 2 days out of my iPhone batteries.
yeah,
But the 14, especially, well, the 14 Pro and Pro Max, from what I've seen, and now I've been seeing this, just anecdotally on Twitter, but a lot of it, people are posting their battery health screens and screenshots and showing that the phone that they got on launch day, and we're like what 9 or 10 months into the life cycle of this phone, they're down to like 90, 89% capacity. That's not, I mean, they've lost 10% of the possible capacity of their battery. And I'm surprised that I haven't been hearing more people complain about that. Like it hasn't become more of a national story and not just like the techarati on Twitter sort of complaining amongst themselves.
yeah,
So there's something definitely going on there, and I wonder if it has something to do with like the always on display putting more strain on a battery
yeah.
or something like
It's
that.
it's possible, man, because to me, it's kind of crazy to see that happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's being more aggressive for safety reasons or for whatever, or if it's like they're trying to say, hey, your battery's kind of getting down and we're approaching a new launch. Like, now would be the right time. Now that you're at 89%,
And
time to upgrade.
I would
Yeah.
say like, oh, Apple would never do that, but we know that they have.
Yeah,
So,
we're in a post we found out now
yeah,
about
yeah,
Apple. So I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. I don't that falls under conspiracy theory, but it's one of those things where we just don't know anymore.
Yeah,
And it's very, very strange to see it happening because I know mine, I checked mine and I'm at like what 94%.
yeah,
And I didn't buy mine at launch. I honestly was kind of surprised to see it at that level. I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, when I saw this, when I saw these people posting their battery capacity, so I've got the 12 Pro Max, and I think I got it like 6 months after it launched, but
mhm,
that's still like 2.5 years.
yeah,
And my 12 Pro Max was at 90,
yeah,
and that's what you would expect. Two and a half
yeah,
years later, you're at 90,
yeah,
but
makes sense.
8 or 10 months later, you're at 90. You're not getting that battery capacity back.
Mm-mm.
So there's definitely something going on there, and Apple hasn't said anything about it, and I don't think it is. The grumbling hasn't risen to a level where people are actually questioning it, but I think it's coming because that's gonna. I'm excited for the iPhone 15, mostly because I think they are going to solve some problems that the iPhone has had. Now they're not real big problems, but USB-C is a big deal.
Right.
Because I think, a year ago, Lightning didn't bother me. But a year later, every time I have to go find a Lightning cable, because I'm just like, I know that I have 100 of them somewhere, right? But I can never find any of them when I need one.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah. For me, it's
I,
the dongles, the lightning to 3.5 millimeter dongles.
yeah,
It's like I know it's in an IEM pouch somewhere,
yeah,
but I have to dig through all of them. As far as cables, like you know what I did with charging cables? I got so many freaking Anchor chargers that basically everywhere that I have, like anywhere that I'm going to sit,
yeah,
potentially. And I used to do this for work too. Anywhere that I'm going to sit has a USB-C and a lightning. So because I had to carry both phones, so now there's a setup here at my work, actually two setups here at my work desk with the same thing, and then there's another one at my bedroom, and then there's two in the living room. So if I'm sitting in one place on the couch, there's a setup there, and on the other side of the couch, there's another one there,
Yeah.
and we also have another setup at the kitchen table. So it's wherever we're gonna be to make sure that there's always either a C or a lightning.
Yeah.
It's crazy to do it like this, but when I have friends come over and their phones are low, I'm like, you have a
Yeah.
plethora of choices, my friend.
Yeah. It's like sit down on either side of the couch.
Yeah.
So
Or
we
the
have
wireless chargers on the coffee table. Like, here, knock yourself out.
we have USB plugs like USB A. That's another thing too. Like USB A is starting to annoy me
Yeah.
because so many things like are lightning to C or C to
Or C
C,
to C. Yeah.
but we have two USB A ports, one on each side of our little two-person home theater lounger thing, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And so we have a C on one side and a lightning on the other so that we can do whatever we need. But then, both people need a lightning and then you're in trouble. You have to go dig out a charging brick and then you're like,
Yeah.
I can only find the USB-C, but I only have a USB-A charging brick or vice versa. So I think Apple's going to make a lot of people happy going to USB-C. And then I keep seeing this little like function button that they're going to replace the mute switch with.
Huh.
So Samsung had something like this years ago, and the Bixby button, and they kind of went away from it.
Yeah.
But what I've heard, and I don't know if this is like a solid rumor or this is just something that's been floating around as a possibility, but this little function button will have the opportunity, you'll be able to launch different things with it. So you can say like launch shortcuts,
Yeah. No,
or
that'll be super useful.
yeah,
Shortcuts are crazy useful.
but
So
I never use them because they're kind of buried at like one or two levels too deep, right?
yeah.
And you've got to really be thoughtful about what you want the shortcut to do, and then so they are super cool, and Apple hasn't totally leveraged them yet. But
Yeah.
I think a shortcuts button could be the
Yeah,
way
I
to
think
go.
that would be super handy for me because right now I have to make sure like I know where mine is. I have one set up in case I get pulled over,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So just in case I get pulled over, I have one set up. And that way it'll start recording audio, video from the front facing because of where my phone sits in my car.
Right.
It the way it's set up on the MagSafe mount, you can see me, but it hits my entire window.
Right.
So
Right.
if I get pulled over, just in case, but it also transmits like location, GPS coordinates, like the whole thing. Like it texts it to like my brother. It would text it to my wife, obviously, but it's not going to do that anymore.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it'll text it to pertinent people. But to have that at a button, like
Yeah.
that to me would be like triple tap on this thing, like boom, 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 and I can just let it do what it's going to do. That to me would be much more useful because right now I have to dig into one of the app folders and then activate the shortcut, and it's right now I think it's 3 steps to turn
Right.
it on, which is 3 steps too many.
So,
So
but you could set up a Siri command, just like,
right.
hey Siri, Popo.
Yeah, right. Now
Just
I haven't had to use it, thankfully,
yeah, yeah,
because it hasn't been like I don't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Of course
um
not. Of course not.
no, it's only like I haven't gotten pulled over per se. I've had cops pull up and say stuff to me.
Yeah,
But it's usually just, nice car or whatever, but usually they leave me alone. But if it ever happens to where like I get caught speeding or something, then I want to have something just in case because you run to the wrong person on the wrong day, you just never know. Or God forbid something else like, somebody tries to rob me or I don't know what, but
yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
it's
or getting into a car accident, to have that at a even though the car is OnStar, but still just to have redundancy built in, you never know.
yeah. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, Apple has plenty of stories about people being, with their Apple watches when they fall or any of those kinds of things. So I think those are the things that are going to be really helpful, and shortcuts can definitely be more a part of the Apple experience than it is so far.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that would be really cool. It's for those of you who don't know. So Jeff, I remember when I came out to San Francisco to go to the Samsung event, you were driving a Camry,
Yep.
right? And now Jeff has a very nice Camaro.
Yeah.
So it's very nice, very
Thank you.
nice. And and so like yeah, I'm sure you drive that all the time, just like a grandmother. Just right, you just put put put, 10 and 2. You just you're doing the whole thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but
Well, put it like this, it's I have fun with it, but I'm not as aggressive as the kids out here
mm,
who are, in their 20s driving the same cars. They're going crazy.
yeah,
And I'm just like, I'm the one who just like, I'm gonna turn off of this street. So
yeah,
because they see my car and then they want to do other stuff, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'll open my window. I'm like, hey, nice car, man, but just calm down. Like we're trying to get there safely.
yeah.
It's like so
I
they call
remember,
me Pops, which is hilarious because I'm
yeah,
like, Can I just be OG, not Pops?
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
your grandpa, man." Even though I
yeah.
know I'm old enough to be your grandpa.
It's it's hard when you actually become somebody's grandpa. Then you're
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I'm old now.
Yeah, right?
But man, I remember so back where I grew up in West Virginia, I always got nervous every time I saw a Pontiac Grand Am because it seemed like everybody who drove a Grand Am thought they were on NASCAR.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter if they were in a parking lot or anywhere. Like they were driving like Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so yeah,
That's a
I know.
Nissan Altima now.
Yeah, I know,
Those
man.
people now drive Nissan Altimas, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember, oh geez, I lived on Staten Island for a year, and everybody drove Nissans. Everybody on Staten Island, and this was back in like 2003.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, we should start wrapping it up. I know
Yeah,
you've
no
got
worries.
stuff to do, and it's dinner time for me.
Hey.
So yeah, and I miss the early bird special now that I'm a grandfather. So I have to.
Oh, no.
But yeah, Jeff, man, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Always happy to be here.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to hang out. We haven't really hung out all that much for a while. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
man.
anyway, tell people where they can find you.
It's at El Jefe Reviews on all the socials, mostly YouTube, sometimes Twitter X or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that's usually where I'm at. You'll usually find me on YouTube hanging out, doing my live show on Sundays. But yeah, aside from that, yeah, I'm just talking headphones and trying to have a good time, build a community, and just do my thing, man. Just do my thing and try to enjoy life as much as I can.
Yeah, that's all you can do, right? I mean, I'm working on that as well. I'm working
Yeah,
on that as well. Trying to work hard but not kill myself. It's
yep,
been very interesting. Like our grandson lives with us, and so suddenly I'm raising a toddler again, and it's just really it changes your perspective whether it happens earlier in your life and you raise a kid or you raise another kid like 20 years later.
yeah. Back
So
to
it's
square one again.
I know. Just my daughter graduated from high school last year, and my wife and I were all thinking, yes, we'll be empty nesting. And then my son has a baby with his girlfriend, and I love my grandson to death. I wouldn't
Yeah,
I wouldn't trade anything for it, but it was certainly not in the plans.
yeah. I hear
So
you.
yeah. But anyway, man, thank you so much. And everybody out there, thank you so much for checking things out. Painfully Honest Tech Podcast, always here. We're back every single week. Next week, we've got Juan Bagnell. And as long as things remain the way they are, the following week, Mr. John Prosser will be here. John can be somewhat mercurial, but we've
Mhm.
got him scheduled for the 17th. So stick around and be ready for that. But otherwise, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. My
Of
name is
course.
Jason, sometimes known as the JTL, Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. The podcast is so honest, it hurts. Until the next time, we're out.